Zeitgeist, a sign of the times. So I suppose we're going to have to go there. Now, it's January 2023 and once again in the news reports in the UK, for example, we're hearing about President Joe Biden receiving claims that he's got secret documents, top secret documents in his possession, and it's presented as a news feature in the news. An active president of the United States has been found with secret documents at his in his garage at home, and recently we've had Donald Trump. Not only did he have top secret private documents, the FBI were raided one of his homes, and so we've got President Trump, in trouble in the news because he's got top secret documents, and we've got a sitting president, Joe Biden, with secret documents, and he's in possession of secret documents in his garage. Now, and in the UK, we have Rishi Sunak, who is the sitting Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and he's now got a slap on the hand for not wearing a seatbelt in the back of a car whilst he was creating a TikTok video, or was it a Twitter video, or he was talking about something, an initiative in the UK, and they put it on social media, but he hasn't put the seatbelt on. Obviously the car is being driven by a driver, and there's probably a security person inside the car, and at least one other person with the camera probably. But yet everyone noticed that the car's moving along, he's not wearing a seatbelt, and he's broken the law, and apparently the local police force has had to issue him with a penalty because he hasn't worn a seatbelt. Now, on the face of it, I suppose that's okay. The law applies to everyone. Perhaps he should have worn the seatbelt, and it was a lapse. One of his aides, one of his staff, was probably told off because that they hadn't noticed that themselves. But my point is, hold on one second. We have three very prominent political figures. Two of them are actually in office doing their job. They're being subject to these media claims that they're bad boys and they need a slap on the hand because they've done something wrong. The things that they've done wrong, so for example, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, what they've done wrong is that they're in possession of top secret documents. Now, I bet you these documents aren't that top secret. Well, okay, they are top secret, but I bet you they refer to things, from 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Remember that Joe Biden, for example, he's been a career politician in the US. He's had every post there is. He's probably met more people in the world, in the political environment, than you could throw a stick at. Trump is a cartoon character. And I don't know where he's learned a particular style of public address that appeals to a lot of people, but he's very good at that. I always think of Barack Obama. His ability to perform public address was fantastic, and Donald Trump is really good at it. Joe Biden back in the day was certainly very good at public address. He was great at talking to groups of people and coordinating a discussion, and these people are good at their job. Rishi Sunak. Now, I'm not even a conservative. I'm not even. I'm sort of bipartisan. I don't really support anyone in politics. It's more individuals that I like. Yeah, Rory Stewart, for example, he's a politician. He's a great Conservative, and he's one of the Conservatives that ran to be the Conservative leader. I like him very much, but I'm not really buying, the two-party political thing. In the US, you've got the Democrats, and you've got the you've got the Democrats and you've got the Republicans, and so you've got this duality thing. And we have the same thing in the UK. We've got Conservatives and Labour, and what's good about having two prominent political organisations is that it makes it easier for the audience. It makes it easier for the general public to point the finger. Something's not going too well, there is a problem, that party is responsible and this party is doing a good job, and then vice versa. The two-party democratic political system does lend itself very well to this Punch and Judy show that allows the general public to pick a side and and have a verbal match about something that way. Anyway, but to get back to Zeitgeist and the sign of our times, again, we've got these three prominent political leaders, getting dragged over the coals in the news media for things that are really non-issues. Joe Biden in particular, there will have been many occasions where he's had to have access to documents that have the word secret written on them because there is a sensitive nature to that document. I mean, even in normal companies, that have nothing to do with running the country, they make, technical products. Their documents are top secret because you don't want your competitors having access to your documents. So most of the time the analogy is like that, unless of course the information has a national security or a defense relation, therefore that's much more sensitive, and of course you don't want that being public knowledge or the enemy getting hold of it. But Donald Trump, Joe Biden having access to top secret documents would be very, very normal. And if they have them, it means that they can't be that top secret and they can't be that important, especially with Joe Biden's top secret documents in a garage at one of his properties. I'm pretty sure there's nothing in these documents that's of any interest to anyone anyway. And poor Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, having to eat humble pie and swallow some pride and apologise to everyone and receipt this seatbelt parking ticket because he forgot to put the seatbelt on. And in context, he was actually, telling the general public about some great news in the UK. So it is. Just spilled some. So it is interesting, and it's happened many times before that we've seen these non-stories appear as featured stories in the news media. And if you chat to people in the news media, journalists, or in particular news agency editors, you're going to find out that the priorities or the decision-making process that they are subject to starts to be very interesting, because the editor may take the point of view that he only wants to have news items in the media that are interesting, that people want to see. And I'm sure that you've often heard this "if it bleeds, it reads" comment. So if there's a catastrophe or something bad in the world, the mainstream news media, they want that story because they think people are going to want to see it. Years ago, when we had tabloid presses, or when we had on the line newspapers, So most news consumption was done via the television or a newspaper. That was important because the newspaper was how they made money. So you needed advertisement in the newspaper, and you need people to buy the newspaper. But essentially, the same thing happens today. There are firewalls on websites that you're invited to be subscribed so that you can access all the information you want. But if you have a newspaper that is really more centered around its commercial performance, in that it has to sell itself, it has to get eyeballs, fair enough. But also that news outlet also has a public utility, a public use. And the issue of credibility is highly important because you want to be telling the audience of your news channel, things that are appropriate for their life and and society, and also the benefit of society and today and the near future. Then it needs to be of value. Now, telling the general public many times over again that Donald Trump has secret documents, Joe Biden has secret documents, and Rishi Sunak hasn't got his seatbelt on, is, if you think about it, it's definitely worth noting once, and maybe twice. Yes, there's a soundbite there, and I suppose it's a little bit interesting, but we are having it presented over and over again in the news media, meaning it's either important or they have absolutely nothing else to talk about. Now, with what's going on around the world, we have a war in Ukraine. And imagine all the information that could be spoken about that. But yet Rishi Sunak's seatbelt seems to be priority over that right now. And back in poor America, they're having to go through this secret document thing. We have bigger problems on planet Earth than secret documents and seatbelts. It's absolutely unbelievable. But I think what it does, it signifies the time that we are in. Right now it's January 2023. We have ChatGPT. We have reactive artificial intelligence looking that it's conscious. We have a possible going back to the moon visit, and that's a precursor to traveling to Mars, so space travel. Now space travel is a discussion all by itself because we're still lighting hydrocarbon fuel in a pipe and shoving it out of one end to make the object go to the other end. I'm not sure about the Mars travel at all. Anyway, so we have technology. We have technology impacting the world that we live in dramatically. The internet, what you can do on the internet, the manufacturing capability that we have today, the semiconductor, constant revolution that's taking place. We have population growth, we have climate change, we have the war in Ukraine, we have economic pressure on everyone, it seems, today. We have all these interrelated, very large social problems. And then we have the finance industry. Then we have cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and the future of money. I've just said a couple of things here that are massively complex and interesting, but also have a direct relationship to everyone's quality of life that the news media seems to not really want to dig too deep about. Either they don't know, or they're not interested, or they're not allowed to fully know what's going on. especially around the finance industry. Now, I was about to say the war in Ukraine, and when a country is at war, you can't be airing your washing all day long and telling everybody what's going on, because it could disadvantage that country's ability to participate in a war, because you're releasing all the information about it. So about the war, yes, we can't be telling everybody everything the whole time, but the finance industry, that has a direct impact on people's lives, their security, their financial security, also their decision making around what job to do, that sort of thing. We do have a legitimate need to know about the finance industry, and the news media simply doesn't touch it. It might skirt a little bit around some, very generalized terms about the finance industry. They will talk about inflation. They will talk about price rises. They will talk about groups of people struggling to pay bills. They will talk about that, but they certainly won't explain why exactly. And they won't explain the related issues that then link to a central bank or the finance industry. They simply skirt over that stuff, or tell you a story that sends you into a different direction. It's almost like they don't want you looking too closely to the finance industry. In particular the central bank, in particular to investment banks, and what goes on in the finance industry. It's almost like that industry receives the amount of secrecy that national intelligence would. It does seem a bit ridiculous that that the mechanics and the nuances of the finance industry aren't fully explained. And I think this because many times I will speak to friends and people, and I will be chatting about the finance industry to them, and it's evident that they don't really know much about it. Now, actually, you could forgive them. Who the heck wants to know about the finance industry? It's very boring, and it's not that interesting. Have you ever been to a party, a dinner party, or you've been with a group of people, and someone has said, I work for an investment fund or a hedge fund? It's not always the most inspiring comment to make. I've been in situations where someone has said that they work for an investment bank. I won't name which one, but everybody else seemed to do a 180 and try and walk away from them because they didn't want to know about their job. They didn't want to know about this investment bank. And so I'm sure that these investment banks do some interesting things. I'm sure they do. Anyway, but what's going on? Now, we've seen films like The Hunger Games, and The Hunger Games, obviously it's a feature film, but it portrays the political establishment and the police and the military services all coagulating together and controlling society. And the news that's presented is pure propaganda the whole time. It's just ridiculous stories about things that have nothing to do with the way things are run. And to entertain the general public, they have innocent people fighting each other, and crazy games that are supposed to be like the gladiatorial games in Rome thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, to keep the masses, entertained with something to take them away, to stop them asking questions of the political class. Questions like, can you just tell us how you're running the country? Could we run the country a bit better? Should this be happening? It's almost like these days the man in the street simply isn't allowed to know how things work. Yes, always there is certain aspects of the world that we live in, certain aspects of the military, the security services, agencies that support security. You know, there are aspects there that you don't want to be chatting about the whole time to the general public. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't service, you know, what these agencies are doing. But on the whole, it's like most of the information that we have in the news is complete junk. Saying that, there are some business reports that that one of the big media agencies does report on that I do think is very good. I do like it. And there are other business reports and other business report providers out there that do a great job and do really offer very credible information that to a business person is really valuable. So, you know, it's not all doom and gloom what I'm saying. What I'm once again really taking this chat back to is, you know, the sign of the times. We are today, January 2023. There are some big howling issues out there that should be reported in the news, but instead in the news we've got Donald Trump, Joe Biden, documents that they've been found with. That's a news item, and we have Rishi Sunak not wearing a seatbelt. These are the headline news items that we are being fed in the news media. And I am saying that that is evidence of a crazy situation that we are facing, where the news media agencies seem to be prioritizing stories that have the general public mesmerized and occupied with subject matter that really has no real bearing to what's going on or their quality of life. It's almost like we have these smoke screen stories that are constantly presented to keep us all busy, you know, thinking about these problems and pointing the finger and keeping us off the mark of wanting to look a little bit deeper and asking grown-up questions like, how does the financial industry really work? Why is there a war in Russia? You know, who is right, who is wrong, what should really be happening? Is a democratic political system the right way forward? Do we have real democracy? You know, what is an autocratic style of government? Is that any good? You know, why do some countries have dictators and people that only seem to be self-focused on themselves at the cost of absolutely everybody else? Is that correct? Because listening to the news media, many times you think, hold on, you are aware, you know, that this country is aware that that country is doing something very bad. It is harming its people greatly. And you are telling us that countries that are bigger, stronger and more powerful simply don't want to get involved with an injustice that's happening over here. And we should just sit back and agree with you. Yes, this poor country over here, whose general public is being victimized by a dictatorship, and we can see that it's not good, and other countries that could sort this problem out, simply they have decided not to get involved. I mean, often I think it's because that country doesn't have any resources or oil that other countries might want as a payment for their intervention. You know, this is what I'm talking about. This happens, this goes on in the world, and we are more bothered about Rishi Sunak not wearing his seatbelt. And there are many other things that we are aware of that do not appear in the news, and even when they do, you know, it's via a lens of propaganda and a specific narrative, a message that the news channel is wanting you to understand and believe. It's almost like news media channels have become propaganda agencies for whoever is paying for them, and that's quite a sad sign of the times. That's quite a sad zeitgeist, and that's the point of this video. Anyway, I'm going to shut up there, and I'm going to say I hope everyone is well, and I will come back again soon. Everyone, have a good day.